I'm an ordained minister of the gospel. I'm the party leader of Agano Party, and as it's obvious now, I'm one of the four persons who are running for presidency this year. Let me start by recognizing all of you who are present here, Wanjiku and every Kenyan who is listening. Let me also pass greetings of peace to my running mate, to my competitor who is not here, and to the others. I would also like to take the earliest opportunity to pass my condolences to the people who are involved in the Nithi Bridge accident. We have lost a lot of Kenyans as I stand here to talk about the future. But let me end with the few seconds remaining, and because I'm alone, I hope I will be extended a few seconds, to say that I am here as an anti-corruption crusader. I am here as a friend of the people of Kenya and the people of the universe. I am here as a person, a man of peace. We are at a very defining moment in Kenya. For me, the elections of 9th August are very defining. 59 years after independence, we still have to discuss, we still have to find out what we need to do with this nation going into the future. Because the question begs answers. Why is it that 59 years after independence, Kenyans cannot afford not even a single meal per day? Why is it that 59 years after independence, we have such high cost of living than we have had before? Why is it that 59 years after independence, we have such high level of unemployment? And why, 59 years after independence, are we so indebted than we've never done before? And yet, those we were born together with, those we obtained independence with us, a number of them, and many of them have gone on ahead. And right now, they are fast worlds, they are even competing with greater nations.
Mr. Wahiga, thank you. Your 2 minutes was up, and we did accord you a few more seconds since you are alone. Why, Mr. Wahiga, does a man of the cloth, a man of God, want to get deeper into politics here in Kenya and be the president of this nation?
You know, leadership is part of what, if I go spiritual, God created. And in my faith, the Christian faith, we say all leadership comes from God. And He gives men and women here on earth the determination, the wherewithal to choose who He may lead. But I'm not just a man of cloth. I'm a lawyer by profession and a senior lawyer, senior counsel by virtue of years, with that 9 years to my belt. Not only that, like I have said, I am a person who has lived and watched in this nation, read the history of this nation, read the histories of other nations. And I am here because also the Constitution allows me, I fit the bill to come and run for presidency. But I come again as a new person in this area. This is my second stab at the president, but I've not been there before. But I'm here because I believe the elections of 9th August require a new person, a new bloom, a clean person. We need to change if this nation will go forward. That's why I come in as a man of cloth as well.
Mr. Wahiga, the reasons you give tonight, basically every Kenyan would give them. What is unique in your proposition?
Why should that be my position? I am tired like Kenyans are. I am disappointed by the leadership we've had so far. I am also one of those Kenyans who've sat back and watched at the leadership that again wants to come back. A lot of us out there and Kenyans are saying, why do we have to recycle them? I'll tell you what leadership is all about. And because I'm a man of the cloth as well, and the cloth reflects who I am. I'm a little disappointed, and doubly disappointed that my competitor couldn't come in. If he would have come in, he would have come in a durag, because that represents who he is. This represents my inner me. But leadership, if you have occasion to look, and we read books here, the scripture, the man, one of the people I follow much, is one who was known as King David. And it says, when he was the president, the prime minister of the nation of Israel, it's written of him that he shepherded that nation according to integrity of heart and skillfulness of his hands. Leadership is about taking care, providing, making a way. And that's why, as a man of cloth, as a lawyer, and for the first time we have a lawyer as a presidential candidate, it is so defining that a person like me, because if a man of cloth would follow the ways of the scripture and the ways of our constitution, if he would follow the ways that are right and accepted international standards, he would not steal from his people, we would not have the level of scandals we've had in this nation, which I'll talk in a moment. We will not have our development funds, perfect funds stashed abroad. And this is why we are here. Poor 59 years. Yeah. But nations that we got independence with, and I can just mention two, Singapore, South Korea, smaller nations than ourselves, nations with people who are equally gifted like Kenyans are gifted. We are nowhere near catching up with them. I am here because I believe we've got what it takes as Kenyans. We can do it, and we have a reason after 9th to do it and move forward.
Mr. Wahiga, the church does play a crucial role in national development and in securing our nation in many ways and in bringing guidance to the people. But many would argue that in many ways the church has failed us. What are your thoughts on that?
I wouldn't agree with them. I wouldn't agree with them. To the contrary, my thinking is that the church has not been fully involved in governance. Separate, but yet a very important partner. Talking about the liberations we've had in this nation, from 1963, the fight for independence, talking about the first liberation, the second, the Constitution review, the church was very key. Religious organizations are important. Faith is an integral part of mankind, and every person, it doesn't matter who it is, believes in something, follows something, and refers to something when the time comes, when push comes, when pull comes to push. But you would have to be specific, because I know the church has been speaking out. We've had Bishop Sokulu, we had Muge, we have Joya still with us, gallant men of this nation. And I can say we are here because of that. Probably what you are referring to is you expect more. This time you have one of them, but also a professional in his own right.
The voices you have mentioned are voices of yesteryears. I'm yet to hear you mention the current voices speaking, because your voice has been silent on this. We haven't heard you condemn what's going on in the country. We haven't seen you come out loud. And specific example, when politicians infiltrate the church and stand at the podium and speak about politics, we have never heard you condemn this.
Well, you know, there are many ways to engage, and I have engaged in my area. Standing for me here is a journey of about 22 years. This is a starting that started from the year 2000. And this is not even my first time to express an interest in leading this nation. This is my 6th stab at an election. And in all that, it's been an expression of the fact that I have been unhappy. I have been unhappy. As a party leader, we have had occasion. We may not probably have been as loud, or if you wish, you may not have covered us. And I'm not referring to you particularly, Ken, but we have spoken out on matters. It's not the first time that I'm speaking against corruption. And you know, there is a greater way of expressing opposition, by your example, by who you were. As I stand here, I know nobody can accuse me of having been involved in any of these scandals. As I stand here, I'm a witness. I am an example of the fact that any Kenyan can run for presidency. As I stand here, I am here to break this sort of wall where we believed only a certain person and peoples. The Catholic Church has been issuing statements. NCCK has done that. Evangelical Alliance. The Muslims have been speaking. Probably it's only that they haven't been covered as much.
You yourself say that this is your 6th stab at an election. You have been unsuccessful in the past, for example, when you ran for governor of Lamu in 2013. So what's different now? What makes you think you will win this race?
There is nothing in life like not giving up. And the trouble we can be in Kenya is if we give up as we go forward to the 9th. One of my persons I followed much is Abraham Lincoln. And if I remember my history right, it was during his 13th attempt, though before that he had won some legislative position, that he became the President of the United States. And when he did that, we know that he's the one who brought about the slavery emancipation, something to date that speaks to this world about the fact that all men and women are created equal. And that's why we can speak tonight as we are here. I am an example of a person who does not give up. I have not lost in every election, I can tell you. Like the last one of 2017, I would tell you that's an election where I believe I was rigged out. It's only that I couldn't get the facts, and I had done my bit. That was the election, if you remember, where one of my competitors said that people were voted through the computer. I was going to be the senator of Lamu County. But here I am. You must live to fight another day. I am here because there is no room for giving up. The trouble in Kenya, we are where we are because we've given up. Right now, as I speak to you, and I thank you for this opportunity, Media Council, there are Kenyans who have said, tutapiga kura tu yeyote, fatalistic attitude. But thank you for the opportunity to tell Kenyans that, no, there is still another one. We don't have to recycle. There's change this time.
Maybe because you've not gotten the opportunity, that's why you can stand tall and say you have not been involved in any corruption, perhaps if you had an opportunity. But away from that, as an advocate, would you advocate for the division, complete division between the state and religion?
First, on your first question, it's not that I have not had an opportunity, I have not been appointed at the top. No, I have had occasions where I have led, but also in my private life. You see, it fights from the lowest unit as a lawyer. I can stand here and say, I have not been accused. I have not stolen clients' money. It's not just here. I've had these positions of responsibility. I've sat on the Council of the Law Society. I've sat in several corporate and non-government and religious boards. But so it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle that I'm in. But coming to your question, would I advocate? I think it's important that state and region be separated. And by that, I think we need to define what that means. Because basically, it's saying that it's like every person in a state should be allowed to exercise their faith without the government imposing on them who it is, what faith they should follow. And that's where the whole principle about state and religion comes from. But also, religious organizations have a very important part to play in the nation. They teach about better ways of living, morals. They bring governments to book. They call out when things are not going right. I do not know of any religion that condones corruption, stealing from the poor, taking money from the sick. You know, I do not know of any religion that talks about fighting, hating your neighbor. I know every religion advocates for the golden rule. Love your neighbor, peace. And they are an important component. And in a Ghana government, in a Mwaura Wahiga government, religious leaders will play a very pivotal role. To the extent I believe, in my government, they'll even sit in cabinet. In my government, when they perform civic duties, which they do, they should even be remunerated because they are helping the government. They are rendering a service.
Mr. Mwaura, the question is, would you want this taken out of the Constitution completely? 32 guarantees this. You're talking to us, what exists in the Constitution? What is your view? Would you want it taken off completely, or you still want it to be under the control of the state?
Come again. You need to repeat that question. Let me get you right, Ken.
The question is, what you're telling us tonight is what is entrenched in the Constitution.
Right.
My question is, as an advocate, would you want 32(1) to be expunged completely so that it's not guaranteed in the Constitution?
No, not at all, not at all. The freedom of worship and the separateness of the state and government, those are key. Standing here as a man of color, I'm probably speaking to a person who thinks, now my faith has no place in future. But standing here in who I am inside is a representation of the fact that I'll take care of everybody. Because my faith says, treat all people equal. Become a person of peace. Share equally. Defend the voiceless. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. And exercise not just equality, but equity for all. That is true religion. And for my faith, the Christian faith, that's what it stands for.
Mr. Wahiga, more often than not, we see on television the church being used by politicians, the pulpit being used by politicians for them to play politics. What is your view on this? How are you going to ensure that stops?
It's not all churches that do that. First of all, a number of churches have different requirements and order of how they do things. And some of them permit, some do not. It's also important to recognize that in our society and many societies, church is a place where people meet, is a place that brings people together. I think what's important is to define what can be said within a church context building, a church building context, because the church is a place of worship. And it should not be a place where people should come and attack others, hurl abuses at others. No, that's not true religion. It's not a place where people should come and speak ill of another tribe. It's not a place even where people should come in and condone the sort of things that have made our nation be what it is those many years that I've mentioned. So I would say I don't see a problem either way. The only way, it should be tempered, it should be able to pass the same message for which a church sanctuary or any other faith exists.
But you haven't quite answered the question. What is it that you will do to ensure that those tempers are brought down and dirty politics are not played in church?
I think speaking from here, I would only urge fellow spiritual leaders and religious leaders to, right now we are calling for peace, and I've been calling for that in my campaign. I've been speaking out and reminding Kenyans that we have a life after 9th. We have a nation. Our nation is not completely down and under. There is hope for this nation. And I would just urge them, as the CEO of this nation, I don't think I can order them, nor can I register it as to how they should conduct themselves. But I know our religious leaders of all faiths, and even church leaders who I'm closer to, they know what they should do, and they are listening to us. They are listening to us.
We'll now move to the topic of leadership and integrity. Apart from the professional real record in the professional service, that's the Law Society of Kenya, and what you have done to the community, you don't have an apparent record of public service. What do you bring to the table to Kenyans, to table and tell them, because of this and that, I stand here tall and I can ask you to give me your vote?
Public service, I don't have a record. I think what you're saying is that I've not been elected or appointed into a position. Yes, there can only probably be one appointment into any given position. I have indicated the number of years that I've been in the legal profession. That's a position of responsibility. I have been involved, I have led a party for the last 16 years. That is a story of success in Kenya. A story of success, a party that has fielded people, a party that has stood up for what it was registered and formed for. Not only that, I have led, as far as I can remember, high school, I was in leadership positions. I have sat in both corporate and other boards where I have given leadership decisions. In all my life, I've found myself being moved to leadership positions, except the one that I'm looking for. But you know what? There is always a time for one to start. There is always an Obama moment and a Madeira moment for a person. I believe this for me is an Obama, is a Madeira, not just for me, but for Kenyans. But if you allow me to turn out your question, Ken.
Yes.
I am not sure I would have wanted to have some experience that I see with some of the leadership that will stand here or has stood here. I wouldn't want that experience. What experience are we talking about of? Running our country down, scandals, corruption, you know, named in every other scandal, and yet they want to be a president. They have named in everything that has brought our nation to its knees, which it is now. If it's not them, it's their relatives, it's people close to them. For me, that is not experience. If that's part of the experience you probably are referring to, I'm so grateful tonight that I'm not part of it. But I can assure you, if I had gotten in that position, I would have been the same person that you're looking at tonight.
Apart from telling Kenyans what you bring to the table, being tried and tested, Mr. Wahiga, is a very big issue in this country. I want you to look at your opponents who are not there tonight and tell Kenyans why you, why not Kenya Kwanza, why not Azimio, and why not Roots in terms of integrity.
Kenyans, as I said at the beginning, we are at a defining moment. The elections of 9th August are pretty defining for the reasons I said before. High cost of living that we have never had before, high cost of food prices, such high unemployment as we've never had before, such high debt, foreign debt, not to mention the internal debt that we have. A lot of insecurity because we still have nations peoples in Kenya fighting each other. We have had cases of insecurity. And I'm saying we are all here because the leadership we have had before have abdicated their role as leaders to lead, to shepherd, to take care of, to become good stewards, to steward our wealth and take it where it should be to the development of this nation. I am saying I'm different from them. I've not been part of them. I'm not involved. I'm not part of that. The promises they are giving you are promises that they have given before. We had them in 2017. We had them in 2013. We had them in 1997, in 2007. And the question that you Kenyans, you must be asking like I'm asking, what is the difference now? I even want to go further and say, even for those who it is said they might have decided, looking at the four of us, who can you say has made a difference in your life this far? If so, why are we where we are? Why do we still have money that should have been used in developing our country, stashed in nations abroad, illegally obtained and legally stashed? These are public resources. I'm not talking about personal private money. Why are we here at a time like this? And the Auditor General 4 years back tells us 215 billion Kenya shillings from Euroboard cannot be accounted for. It cannot be traced. It is a mystery. Why are we here before? And the Auditor General Nancy tells us this year that 70 billion Kenya shillings alone has not been used. Why are we here in a year like this when we have that much foreign loan? The Auditor General tells us about 540 billion Kenya shillings is in an accounted expenditure. And yet, this was a government that was supposed to change things. We had hope, but it didn't turn so. I believe the only thing that will move us forward is complete change from the top to the bottom. And what is permanent is only change, as they say. Recycling them will not take us anywhere. That's why this is a very defining election.
But you haven't told us why not those candidates. What, for example, would you want to say about these candidates?
Well, come again.
What would you want to say about these candidates, the other candidates who you're running against for president?
All right. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. I would like to say they have been there before. One of them has been a deputy president and is still a deputy president of this republic. He is in government. The things he is saying he can do are things he could have done these last 10 years, this last 20, this last 30, because he's in government that long, and he has not done so. The other one has been a former prime minister. He's been in a coalition, a co-president, if you wish, sharing the government 50-50. The things he is promising are things he could have done. but he has not done. He's been in this race for the last 40 years. And the other one has been in government also. He's been with the police force, he's been in the intelligentsia, and even right now, I believe he is still in there. And the thing I'm saying is, if you take even these last 10 years, let me just take these last 10 years, where we have a deputy president who wants to run for presidency. This year, my team and I have counted these last 10 years, not less than 22 scandals that have taken place in broad daylight. And those are the ones that have been reported. There are others, we are told, are secret agreements about contracts to make roads that we don't know what they say. If you go to the former coalition government, where we had one of my competitors has been a co-president, a prime minister. We have counted about 12 scandals, and they have been there. They were even there in the Moi regime. And the final one, you've worked in government, you've traveled across the world, you must know something about our funds which are stashed abroad there. You are in the intelligentsia, you have served, you never retire from that. They don't fit the bill. They are not helping Kenyans.
Okay.
They are not taking what the issues are.
All right, let's turn to our next topic for discussion tonight, and that is the state of the economy. Now, you are on record, Mr. Wahiga, saying that within the first 100 days of assuming office, you will bring down the cost of living for Kenyans. How exactly do you intend to do that, and by how much?
You know, this is a serious matter, and I have not just said. In Kenya, we're facing problems at two levels. There's what you refer to Simiriti. There's what I consider as a short term, and there is a long term. Up until we called for the reduction, for the reintroduction of the foods, of the Unga subsidy, Unga was retailing going on to about 250. It was after we had announced in our manifesto that we will bring that. Thankfully, it's been brought down. But that's not all. And I'm glad that we are leading and others are following. We still know that the price of cooking oil is very high. I think now it's about 400. Bread has not come down, retailing 90, 100. Fuel is still at high prices. And those are immediate things. We don't need to wait to restructure our loan, or we don't want to wait, because those are some of the solutions I have had, to plant a kind of plant, probably, and wait for it to be harvested. We don't have to wait, you know, because Kenyans are hungry. They need immediate results. And what I have done, and you'll find that in my manifesto, we sat down with my team of experts and thought, what is the immediate? And our proposals have come in threesome. There was Unga, which has been done. Thank you very much. We thank His Excellency, the President. But in the same measure, we say also other things could have come down. But we have said we shall introduce subsidies into other food products. That's number one. Number two, we have also said that we are going to reduce pay by 50% so that Kenyans can have money they can take home with. And that is something that will benefit about 16, 17 million Kenya shillings. If you are earning about 25,000, you'll be able to take an extra 1,000. If you are earning about 35, 40, that's another 4,000. We have also come and said to spur growth, throw some money into the economy. We shall waive away tax penalties that are accrued after the day we are sworn.
All right,
and you know, we are looking for ways to put some money in the pocket of Kenyans, something to spur, something to enable them put food on the table. Because as a country, I'm talking to you while we are broke. We are broke as a country. The most we can do is continue borrowing. I'm looking for solutions from within.
All right,
what can we do now?
And you have said that you would reduce pay by 50%, but pay accounts for 25% of Kenya's tax revenue. How then would you meet revenue targets? You know that is not. It's not a problem. And I was going to say that's not the only problem there is in Kenya. If I take away 50%, the amount of pay we get is 460 billion. 460 billion. So 50% will be 230. When I take that money and I put into the pockets of working Kenyans,
I tell you as I stand here, it will perform wonders. Kenyans are looking for any extra shilling that they can get. But how do I bridge that gap? We have tried to work around and see what can we do. And those are short-term measures because Kenyans have to survive. Otherwise, they will die. You know, we pay the taxes. The foreign loan we pay is at 1.3 billion, and we have sat down and said, if we can persuade our friends, and Kenya has many friends. I'm glad they are represented even here by the foreign embassies and diplomats who are here, and tell them, why don't you just accept a repayment of 1 trillion instead of 1.3? That will bring about 300 billion. We can bring back to bridge in the gap, and we are positive that it will be able to do that. But also the 260 billion, that will put into Kenyans' pockets. Kenyans are industrious. Kenyans have goodwill from within. Kenyans are hardworking. And this is a nation that can get money, has had money, and will get money under a new government. The 260 billion, we see it bringing returns because it will go in people starting small businesses. People will be able to start their kiosks or do something else or start what we call side hustles. What Kenyans need is just a little money and they can be able to move forward. The other thing we have thought about is spread the tax base. That's something we are looking into immediately now in office. But I need to talk to you about corruption and the money that's stashed abroad.
We're coming to that.
Yeah, we go to that. But before we talk about that, you're running for president, and you understand also as an advocate of the High Court,
right,
that for you to change some of these regulations, you will need Parliament. You give a time frame of about 100 days. Is it possible that you can get these legislations through Parliament in the period you're giving us? Or they're interim and just campaign rhetorics that you're using?
To bring food subsidies to zero rate all foods and all that, I will not need Parliament.
No, for example, changing the pay as you earn, cutting it by 50%.
I'll let for that. I'll tell you what.
Yes.
The parliamentarians who are coming in, the MCAs, understand the problems I'm talking about. They too are tired. I see goodwill will come forth. I am talking about something that every Kenyan would want to see happen. 59 years after independence, we can't continue being a nation of begging, family bowls being held up like we have seen this year. We should be self-sufficient in terms of food, water. I mean, people should not go without medicine. That's what I'm talking about. So, I mean, you know what, Ken? There is no shortcut. There is no shortcut. Because I've looked at the manifestos of my other friends, my other competitors, I'm even the one coming with something close to realism, something close to practical. And I believe we'll find ways where I have to use executive orders, which exist, which are there in our constitution. I will apply them. We are in an emergency. We are in a time of war. This time calls for leadership.
In your view, what is the biggest challenge to our economy? Is it we don't manufacture enough, we don't trade enough, or is it regulations?
It's neither of those. Those could be the others. It's because we steal, we cut away, we siphon money that is supposed to go into our manufacturing, money that's supposed to go into our agriculture. That's what we have specialized in the last 10 years. Money that is supposed to go into our skill building, money that is supposed to go into the health of our fellow Kenyans, and a healthy person is a productive person. That's what we do. This is a nation where Kenyans work hard, Kenyans labor, Kenyans have got quite a measure of work ethics, but they don't get reward for their labor. For instance, to date, we don't have explanations as what we did with the Euroboat loans. When you listen to me, and you listen to others who have spoken out there, they say even for the SGR, the amount we are repaying is not the money we use for that. I am here, and I am born evidence by a former minister, and allow me to mention the Honorable Joseph Nyaga, God rest his soul in eternal peace. That was in 2020 when he said it's time for us to bring our money back to develop our country. He was an angry person. He had served in the government for about 40 years. He was tired. Our money that is supposed to develop this country, move us forward, is hanging out there in nations that are willing to bring it back if only there's goodwill from my end. I am bringing goodwill. I'm saying, Kenyans, we must change. Those brothers and sisters who went ahead of us did not have two brains, Ken. They did not two heads. They don't even have a landmass. They don't have what we have, but they are great brothers and sisters. We can do it. It's time now, Kenyans, to go to where we went wrong and find out why and do it clean, have a clean start.
Two things. One, what you're saying has nothing to do with growing the economy. What you're saying is the generalities. What I want to know, the role of manufacturing in growing the economy, the role of trade, and the role of regulations. And while you answer that, perhaps tell us how much money in your mind are you thinking can be brought back to the country?
How much money
is outside needs to be brought back to the country?
I'll start with that and I'll come to what you're talking about, manufacturing, regulations and all that, because that's an important area. In the budget of 2017-2018, Henry Rotich, as he then was, the cabinet secretary, said to us that 14.6, which was rounded up to 15 trillion, was stashed abroad and needed to be brought back. To date, that money has never been brought back. We've never had a report. Later, in the year 2020, the late Honorable Joseph Nyaga called again, and his was a cry, please, let's bring our money back. We develop this country. If that was about 15 trillion, and since then 5 years have gone by, we use 2 billion per day. That's about 730 billion. Give it 1 trillion round up. That's about another 5 billion. 5 billion. When in my consideration, we have not less than 20 trillion outside the country that can be brought back. And if it is brought back, this country will be turned upside down and turned into a country that we can't tell that it is the same country.
On that
and
point,
that's just one area.
On that point, Mr. Wahiga, during the deputy presidential debate, your deputy presidential running mate, Ruth, said that you have already written to the United Nations and 15 other countries to start getting this money back into Kenya, and the hope is that if you assume office, the money will be back in Kenya. Have you had any response from these countries?
No, I have not heard, and I appreciate that we are in the period of elections, but I'm glad to know that things we've done, for us our 100 days already started, if you wish, by that effort, and also calling for the Unga subsidy, which was effected. But they are listening. We've got goodwill from out there. We've got great friends from out of Kenya. And I know they too have been saying they wish Kenya can have a president who is speaking the things I'm speaking. I've not heard from them, but I know they are looking at goodwill. You know, I can mention a couple of other things. During the Jubilee period, we have signed instruments with the Swiss government. The Prime Minister was sometime back here in Kenya with Theresa May, when she was the Prime Minister, about repatriating our funds which are out there.
All right, but